All right, welcome back. Hope you all had a great Mother's Day weekend. Today, we're continuing our review of our newest RBT exam, where we're going through each question and breaking them down together. If you're looking for our study materials, please check out rbtexamreview.com. We offer 3 full practice exams, a task list study guide, our combo pack, which comes with everything as our best deal. And we also have our competency study guide as well. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Any questions or comments, please let me know. I'd love to help. Other than that, let's keep working hard, keep studying hard, and let's get to our questions. Question 1. We are using a differential reinforcement procedure to teach a replacement behavior for tantrums. The function of the tantrums is escape. What behavior would be most appropriate? When evaluating these type of questions, especially when the function of the behavior is given, let's start thinking about how could we reinforce this behavior and what might we replace this behavior with. So if we're using differential reinforcement, we're teaching a replacement behavior. The behavior is tantrums, and the tantrums happen because of escape. What do we need to do? We need to replace tantrums with another behavior that functions for escape. When you replace a behavior or when you remove a behavior to teach a new one, that new behavior needs to be functionally equivalent. If we're going to take something away that helps the learner gain access to something or get rid of something, we need to add a behavior in its place that's going to do the same thing. That's the meaning of functionally equivalent. In this case, if the function is escape and we're looking to replace tantrum, what replacement behavior will we need to replace it with? Well, another behavior that could replace escape. So A, staying on task. Well, obviously we would want the client to stay on task, but would we replace staying on task with escape? Well, no, tantrums happen to get out of something. Staying on task would be something else entirely. Remember, we want a functionally equivalent replacement behavior. So staying on task is not going to meet the same function as escape. What about asking appropriately for access to toys? Think about the function if you're asking for something like a toy or an iPad. You're asking for what? A tangible. Our function here is not tangible, it's escape. B is out. C, requesting a break. Okay, if we can get them to appropriately ask for a break, what are they going to accomplish? Well, they're going to accomplish escaping from the task, meeting the function of the tantrums in a more appropriate way. C looks like our best answer. And then D, playing with a fidget toy. That would be more along the lines of an automatic or sensory function. The only behavior that is really truly going to meet the function of escape for our replacement for tantrums is going to be C, requesting a break. Which of the following prompting procedures would most likely avoid physical prompting at first? So, keywords here, most likely and at first. It's not definite, so we need to start thinking in more general terms. Sometimes you'll see the word like always or never, and that's very concrete, that's very definite. When you see most likely, start expanding your thinking a little bit, okay? This is really saying we're looking for the best answer here because 2 of these prompting procedures can use physical prompting, but we're looking for the one that's going to most likely avoid it at first. So what about graduated guidance? Well, graduated guidance is definitely using physical prompting because that's what graduated guidance is. Using as much physical prompting as needed until it's no longer needed. You're fading out very rapidly, but graduated guidance is always using physical prompting. So we're not picking A. B, most to least. When we're using most to least, what are we doing? We're trying to use the most intrusive prompt first. And in our prompt hierarchy, what is the most intrusive prompt? It's going to be a physical prompt. So you are quite likely to use physical prompting at first if you're using most to least, not avoid it. However, if we look at C, least to most, now we want the least intrusive prompt, which would be something like a gestural prompt, maybe. Gestural is going to be way less intrusive than physical. Least to most is much more likely to avoid a physical prompt than a most to least, definitely more likely than a graduated guidance, and 100% more likely than hand over hand, which is what? A physical prompt. So which of the following prompting procedures would most likely avoid physical prompting at first? C, least to most. We want to increase worker production from 40 packages per minute to 60 packages per minute. What type of continuous measurement should we use? A couple things here. First, what is the question asking? Question wants to know, what type of continuous measurement should we use? There's your first clue. Any type of discontinuous measurement or non-continuous measurement we should eliminate. If we look at our answer choices, we can immediately eliminate D. That leaves us with IRT, duration, and latency, 3 time-based measurement procedures. If we look at our behavior we're measuring packages per minute. So if we want to go from 40 packages per minute to 60 packages per minute, what do the workers need to do? They need to go quicker. They need to do what? They need to reduce time in between packages. So if we're looking at time in between packages, in other words, time in between responses, we're really looking at what? Looking at IRT, inter-response time. What is inter-response time? Time in between responses. In this case, time in between packages. If we want to increase worker production, we need to decrease inter-response time. Why isn't duration our answer? Well, duration is going to measure the total time. So maybe the total time it takes them, okay, to package something or to finish their packaging. We're not looking at that, right? We're looking at the individual packaging, okay, and trying to increase that productivity. And then latency would be from the time you say go to the first package. We are looking at package to package, response to response. Therefore, we're looking at inter-response time. Your BCBA trains your family to use a reinforcement procedure along with an extinction procedure. The goal is to decrease aggression. What should your BCBA warn the family about when using extinction? This is an ethical question. When we use things like punishment and extinction, there are ethical concerns we need to think about. And extinction, what is the most obvious ethical concern? Well, think about what happens when we use extinction. We are withholding reinforcement for a previously reinforced behavior, which leads to typically an extinction burst. And during an extinction burst, what happens? The behavior temporarily increases. This is a very important thing to mention to a family when they're going to use extinction. If you're targeting aggression, you're putting aggression on extinction, what's going to happen? There's a good chance that aggression increases. You need to make them aware of that. Not necessarily you, right? You're the RBT, but the BCBA definitely. So in this case, if the BCBA is going to use extinction, what do they need to warn them about? A, extinction should be implemented at least 80% of the time in order to be effective. How often should extinction be implemented? Extinction should be implemented as close to 100% of the time to be effective. 80% is not enough. B, extinction is rarely effective. Just false, right? Just not true. Extinction is one of our principles. It is very effective. C, you should not make eye contact with the child during extinction. Again, that's way too specific, way too concrete. Nothing specifically about extinction says you shouldn't make eye contact. That leaves us with D. There could be a temporary increase in aggression at first with extinction. And that's what we just talked about. When we're placing something on extinction, we can expect an extinction burst, which is a temporary increase. And that's what could happen here. Once we put this behavior on, once we put aggression on extinction, we can expect a temporary increase at first. Answer here is D. Joan is reviewing a stack of applications from people who want to work at her company. She has not met any of the applicants yet. Right now, Joan is evaluating what type of data. Kind of a trickier question, but let's just think about it in terms of ABA. If we haven't met any of the applicants yet, and we're reviewing applications and paperwork, what are we looking at? Are we looking at indirect data, direct data, functional analysis data, or probe data? We can definitely eliminate probe data. Why? Probe data would be data when we're actually asking the person to do something. So if Joan had people come into her office and Joan asked them to perform a behavior, that would be probing. But that's not what's happening. A functional analysis is actually manipulating things in the environment to try to determine the function of behavior. Joan is certainly not doing that. It leaves us with indirect and direct. And what's the difference? Well, direct, we're actually, again, observing the person. Is Joan observing the applicant? No, she hasn't even met the applicants. She's looking through a bunch of paperwork and applications and resumes. Indirect, okay? Anything indirect is when we're not actually observing the target learner or the client. In this case, Joan has not met applicants. She's not observing applicants, right? She's evaluating indirect data. That one's a little tricky, right? It took a little more thinking. If you got that right, good for you. Anna watches her older sister put on makeup each morning. Today, right after Anna watched her sister put on lipstick, Anna put on her lipstick. What is Anna's behavior considered? Let's not overthink this, okay? We have some very specific terms we use over and over again as RBTs, and especially on the RBT exam. Things like imitation, modeling, shaping, probing, and prompting. You're going to hear all the time and over again. So when you hear something like this, right? Anna watched her sister put on lipstick, and then Anna immediately put on her lipstick. What does that sound like to you? Is that modeling, imitation, shaping, or generalization? Well, it's not going to be generalization because we're not generalizing this behavior anywhere, right? It's happening in the learning environment. It's not shaping. Nobody's reinforcing Anna's behavior through approximations. So it's going to be modeling or imitation. Well, who's doing the modeling here? Anna's sister, right? Anna's sister is the one putting lipstick on. What is Anna doing? Anna is imitating the model, imitating her sister. Anna's behavior is imitation. The key here is understanding the difference between modeling and imitation, and then reading the question carefully and looking at Anna's behavior. If we were talking about Anna's sister, we would be talking about modeling, but we're not. We're talking about Anna. We're talking about imitation. We teach a 12-year-old how to mow the lawn so that they can help with their dad's lawn care business. After our teaching is over, the 12-year-old is able to help his dad mow lawns. What does this represent? Here's the key, okay? Maintenance and generalization can get tricky because they are very similar and very much happen at the same time, okay? If you're generalizing, typically you're maintaining. If you're maintaining, typically you're generalizing, okay? So how do we distinguish them? Well, on the test, what we need to look for is things like after our teaching is over, after instruction stops, okay? Because what is maintenance? Maintenance is when a skill continues after teaching is over or after instruction stops. So when we read this, where how this 12-year-old mows the lawn, learns to mow the lawn, and then teaching stops and they can still mow the lawn, that is 100% maintenance, right? We're not really sure about the generalization piece yet. Even if we were, we're looking at response generalization. Response generalization deals with multiple responses. We're only dealing with mowing the lawn, right? It's not manding because manding is communication, that's requesting. And then it's not prompt fading. There's no indication prompts are being faded. It's maintenance. And the key again is after our teaching is over. So when you're reading your questions and you read something like after instruction stops, the behavior continues, or after teaching is over, the behavior continues, think maintenance, right? That is the definition of maintenance. In this case, the 12-year-old is maintaining his ability to mow lawns. On your morning jog, your neighbor is outside and waves at you. You run by that neighbor's house every morning. Why do you run the same route every morning? Well, if your neighbor is outside and waving to you and you want to run by the house every morning, based on the information given, why do we do that? Well, because they wave at us. Don't add things to the question. Don't add information that isn't there. Just use the information they give you, okay? The test is much easier than you think when you do that. All we know is your neighbor waves at you. You run by that neighbor's house every morning. So the only possible reason that we know why you would run that same route is because of the neighbor's wave. And in that case, your behavior is what? Your behavior is increasing or maintaining, and something is being added. If something's being added, we're talking about positive. If your behavior is increasing or maintaining, it's reinforced. We're talking about positive reinforcement. Very easy. It's not positive punishment, right? Because your behavior is not decreasing. It's not negative reinforcement because we're adding the wave. And it's not negative punishment because we're adding the wave and your behavior is increasing. Very clearly, positive reinforcement. Don't overthink reinforcement and punishment questions. And then finally, choosing your favorite beer at the bar, picking out the shirt you like, and putting the dishes in the right place all represent what? Skill. All right, careful. Think about it. What response are we looking at here? Picking a beer. What are we looking at here? Picking a shirt. What are we looking at here? Putting a dish away. What do we need to do though? Well, we need to pick between different types of beer, pick between different types of shirts, and then pick between different types of cabinets or storage units. Okay. So same response, right? A lot of different stimuli. Is this a listener skill? A listener skill would involve someone telling you to do this. There's no indication, especially for picking out the shirt you like. For all we know, this is not socially mediated, so we can eliminate listener skills. It's not tacting, because tacting is labeling. We're not labeling anything. So now we have differentiation and discrimination. And if you watched my video a couple weeks ago, which I hope you did, on differentiation and discrimination, what is the difference? Differentiation, we're looking at multiple responses, right? We're changing up our responses. Discrimination, same response, just different stimuli. So do we have a lot of different responses here, or just one response? Well, we're one response each time, right? Again, choosing a beer, choosing a shirt, choosing where to put dishes. But what are we doing? We're discriminating between the beers, we're discriminating between the shirts, and we're discriminating between where to put the dishes. So all of these, beer, shirt, and dishes, all represent discrimination. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great week. Check out Wednesday. We have more practice questions coming. Our BCBA stuff comes Friday and Saturday. And then Sunday, we have our Let's Learn ABA. Check out RBT Exam Review for all of our study materials. Questions, comments, let me know. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.